We had, over the course of writing Civil War, kind of realized the paths that Steve and Tony were on were crossing. Captain America, who was always willing to jump on a grenade, is slowly learning to value things other than sacrifice. He realizes that maybe there's more to life than always threatening to lose yours. And Tony was becoming wider in his view, right, about what he needs to do and how he needs to save people. We realized, oh, for Steve to become his best self, he needs to get a life. And for Tony to become his best self, he needs to lose his. And we went, oh, that's pretty good. Everybody should have a milkshake. That's a good day. I'm Steve McFeely.
And I'm Chris Markus, and this is how we wrote a Marvel blockbuster. Our relationship with the MCU has been largely based around Steve Rogers, Captain America. It's been very satisfying. You rarely get to take a character through that many changes. It gave us a lot of windows that we were able to reach through for Endgame. It was always going to be Avengers 3 and 4. It was always intended to be two separate movies. I mean, that was from on high from Kevin. He did not want to make a two-parter. They're very different structurally and tonally, and that was always our intention.
I remember no one from Marvel ever asked us to write these movies. Kevin never called and said, I want you guys to write these. We just started negotiating.
I think really all we were handed was Thanos, which necessitates the use of the Infinity Stones, which are this, and this throughout the MCU. And if you want to get rid of people, you can, but you're under no obligation to just kill them willy-nilly. That was just about all.
This is not to say we picked people at random to kill.
Not any more than we do on a daily basis.
Good point.
And there were a bunch of obvious implications from that. Namely, we could bring in the Guardians because two of Thanos' stepdaughters were on that ship. It could be anybody from anywhere, and in fact should be. The beauty of working for Marvel as compared to the rest of Hollywood is when you get a job, you have, for the most part, a release date.
Right.
So you are working on a real concrete movie the whole time, and that things are staffing up and people are starting to make drawings of things you're writing about.
We spent the last 4 months of 2015 locked in a conference room, reading everything we could,
reviewing all the movies that we knew about,
and then writing every ridiculous or non-ridiculous idea we had. We're the ones that are locked in the room and sort of being fed under the door.
Some people are afraid to go into the room and other people don't know how to leave.
It's a big table where there's usually one representative from Marvel. In this case, it's a woman named Trin Tran. Then it's Kevin as often as he can get in there, and Joe and Anth as often as they can get in there. Our collective is really important to how these last 4 movies that we've worked on have come out. That's one of the delightful parts of that room, was, you know, they came in and said, here's all the baseball cards with little magnets on the back. And we went, oh,
amazing. And so we really just throw up every face of alive and dead people in the MCU. On the back it said whether we had this actor or not.
There were something like 60 or 70 names up there, and then just staring at them and going, I've never seen those two people together, that would be fun, or they are going to hate each other, let's put them together. There were big ideas and little ideas. Really did give them to Marvel and to the Russos and just said circle things. Let's start winnowing down the movie that we're all thinking of in our heads but haven't talked about yet.
Research and development is sort of that stage. Once the circles come back, we go, Cap picks up Thor's hammer, obviously. We all agree that should happen somewhere.
It gives you little mile markers to make you feel like you're not just in a vast sea. If you say, when would Cap pick up the hammer? Well, probably pretty late, probably over there. Put that card over there and we can work toward it.
That's why the snap was really helpful. It was always going to be the marker between the movies, but it's a really nice flag to sort of plant in the ground and drive towards. The 4 months in that room are us slowly getting to that outline and people coming in and looking at the sort of serial killer board, Post-its everywhere. And
whiteboard, and there's 3x5 cards, and sometimes there's action figures. You're winnowing down possibilities and you're killing ideas.
You have plenty of days where you go, nothing happened
What
today.
do we do for a living?
All we did is eliminate possibilities. You're talking my language, man.
This is like a bedtime story.
That's right. Again, we were in grad school writing novels and short stories, so we didn't have a film class or anything. So we just bought a book by Sid Field called Screenplay, and he had sort of charted out a lot of blockbuster movies or just films. Act 1, there's a turning point.
Act 2 is sort of the most important part to get right, and there's usually a midpoint. In between Act 1 and the midpoint, there's a little pinch, and in between the midpoint and the end of Act 2, there's a second pinch, and then the third act is whatever it's going to be. And when I say pinches and midpoints, those are plot points where the movie turns. Good examples are,
in Winter Soldier, Cap is on the run, and he doesn't quite know who's chasing him. And a number of clues lead him to Camp Lehigh, and he goes down in the basement, and he turns on a computer, and it turns out to be his nemesis from 1945, only now in computer form. And he tells him that the entire time, what he thinks he knows, he doesn't know, and that Hydra has existed this entire time and has been shaping the century. The movie now flips, and the audience is like, holy crap. I didn't realize that, but I guess that makes sense.
You know, there'll be somebody out there watching this going like, of course, it's a formula. It's a framework so you don't dive into despair,
or waste
basically.
Time.
It's something you can hang things on so that you can actually spend more time on the character work and on the really interesting details.
A card might just say, Cap picks up Mjolnir. Well, that's not enough of a scene, but we know that's going to be over there, and that gets a thumbtack on the wall. But then another scene might be Gamora and Nebula hug it out. That's sort of cheeky code for they're going to have a meaningful scene where they reconcile.
And there are frequently cards that are entirely subtext, where it's just like, Cap needs to find a life, Tony needs to sacrifice his, to remind us there is a through line for these people. The cards come off, and first you literally type up the cards.
It's like transcribing the collective thought of the last 4 months.
We'll have talked about that scene a lot, but it still only says
Gamora and Nebula hug it out, so that one of us has to describe that scene.
It can have dialogue, it can have jokes, it can have sound effects. The outline and all the scripts after it, we write them to be read.
Yeah, it's meant to be a pretty good read.
So that you are getting at least a nominal sense of the excitement or sadness, the dynamics that we're trying to build.
We revise the heck out of it, and then it's numbered, in this case probably 1 through 80 or 90, and then we send it off to be blessed by Marvel and Joe Nance.
There is what is called the Marvel Parliament. I didn't name it. Which is all their primary producers from various projects. They know what their characters are up to.
So you know, we killed that guy.
We have a scene in Black Panther that literally says he doesn't do that.
Remember, we have a villain who has the power of a god. He's omnipotent and omniscient. So we're faced with telling a story where even if we don't defeat him, how do you even start trying to solve the problem with a guy who can kill you with a thought and can see it coming from a million miles away? And it was Trin Tran, I think mostly because she was just frustrated, said, I wish we could just freaking kill him. And we stopped and went, oh, because he was serious about what he said. And all he wanted to do was balance the universe. And so he then got rid of them. And that one frustrated comment went us down a road that we probably should have been down before if we were honest with Thanos' character. And then we jumped 5 years, and we still can't solve the problem because the stones are gone. And yet, Scott Lang, we just requested, can you leave him in the quantum realm? And with fresh eyes, look at our problem and go,
have either of you guys ever studied quantum physics?
Only to make conversation.
Quantum realm might have a solution for you, and it's time travel.
In real quantum physics, the quantum realm does have completely different time qualities than out here in our world.
Yeah, how did you even figure that out?
Google.
No, we had actual time.
Oh, that's right, we had physicists. We had experts come in and say, if it could happen, that's one of the ways it could happen.
No, they said Back to the Future is bullshit.
They did.
And we went, oh, how dare you.
No offense to the makers of Back to the Future.
Fuck Gale, that's right. And that was really helpful to us, clearly. It's the holy grail of nerddom.
It was. First, we shied away from that. We said, okay, we're going to time travel, but we're going to go to places we haven't been before because we don't want it to seem like we're patting ourselves on the back. But then wiser heads prevail and go, well, there's a very satisfying thing to do, which is glance off what you already know and go down a different direction, which allows Steve to say Hail Hydra in an elevator that vaguely resembles the elevator from Winter Soldier, so you're getting all these different little tweaks of satisfaction as it goes along, yet it's progressing the primary plot. That sequence where they're figuring it out in the movie is patterned after all of us sitting in the room going, wait, you know who else is alive during that time period? The Ancient One.
Use them to bring everyone back.
Just like that.
Yeah, just like that.
Changing the past doesn't change the future.
Look, we go back, we get the stones before Thanos gets them. Thanos doesn't have the stones. Problem solved.
Bingo.
That's not how it works.
Being able to sort of weave these threads together, that was a lot of fun.
Once we got the okay to write the script, what we then do is we assign a page count to each scene. So Chris will take number 1 through 7, I'll take 8 through 14, and we will go away for a week.
It's generally in our individual houses, done at our own pace.
Your pages are due on Friday or Monday, say, and then we swap, and usually there's a text in the morning, ready? Almost. And then we put them together, and then we read them out loud, and then assign the next week's work.
I did a fight scene last week. You're doing it.
That's right. Yeah. And they'll change a lot, big action set pieces. So we really do try to dole those out equally, because you just have to get the raw material down.
If you're uninspired, you can wind up just writing everything in all caps and going, bam! He throws up, bam! It's about how our characters are progressing through that action sequence and what does it mean for their character and what does it cost to go through it.
And we work that way, checking in every week until we have what we call the Frankenstein draft. And that is long, repetitive, some gold in there, a lot of chuffa.
Once the Frankenstein is on its feet, then we're largely together trying to hack it into shape. Functional is the best thing you could ask for from a first draft. We sit together for however many weeks it takes and read through it and edit as we go and write new scenes. That's when it goes from semi-failed experiment to functional script.
We meet our deadlines, and then that's first draft.
It was almost like the draft was a progress report on where we are now and where do we want to get to. Let's all work on that. Thanos was delightful. It's strangely a breath of fresh air to be handed a 12-foot-tall purple man.
He's a character who controls every scene, basically, and then when he does not control the scene, say on Vormir, he's thrown for a loop, it becomes incredibly dramatic because he's faced with this really big choice, and then he ends up controlling the scene again at great cost. Not every character always is that sort of like a rhinoceros, 2016, May 1st is both drafts are in, and then we're in prep all the way through the rest of 2016. So that's at least 5 or 6 real drafts of each one.
We're getting notes back and we're having new ideas about how to fix it, winnowing down and really focusing on what these movies are about.
Lila, let's go. Lila? Honey?
That was originally written for Infinity War.
Hey, babe!
To illustrate that people weren't just snapping off on the battlefield. It wasn't just Thanos getting rid of his enemies, that it was happening on a more global scale. So that when Thanos snapped his fingers, suddenly you saw Hawkeye, who you hadn't seen for the rest of the movie. And it didn't work in the pacing of it. It forced a reset of tone. And I think it was Joe Russo and Anthony who said, let's put it at the top.
It lasted one cut. And think about what it does now as the first scene of Endgame. It shows you a character you didn't see a year ago. The audience is ahead of the character. And now they're watching going, oh no, you're not really gonna, you bastards, are you really gonna do this in front of me?
Reinforces what you felt at the end of Infinity War so that you're relaunching
right back into it.
The draft process particleizes once the cameras turn on, so that you're doing 15 drafts of one scene.
Joe and Anthony are now sitting across the table from us, and we've put it up on the screen, and we're reading it out loud, and we are, everyone's weighing in like, we can beat that, or we can cut that, or what have you.
As the departments come on, it's becoming more interactive. It's all part of the character building, storytelling process, and you're just getting more tools as the movie solidifies around you.
Oh my God! Oh my God, it's so good to see you.
Remember, we were inheriting a Thor from Ragnarok who was very well and radically retoned from the previous Avengers movies. So we had to fly in Hemsworth and Taika Waititi. Word was getting out from Australia, do you guys understand what we're doing with this movie? And we're like, no, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah, you're on another continent.
Are you making him an idiot? I don't understand.
In Ragnarok, he loses his kingdom, his father, his sister, and his eyeball.
Right.
We just thought about what would happen if any one of us sustained that much loss and failure, and you would get incredibly depressed and probably retreat from the world. That is a comedic performance with a lot of pain behind it.
At the beginning of every day, Chris and I are there for rehearsal, and if anything were to come out of rehearsal, like somebody doesn't like a line or the door is now a window, we will tweak or provide alts. That's a big one where we just 8 or 9 different jokes that somebody could say. Once they start shooting that, they're going to shoot that all day, so our job is kind of done. So at that point, we're either revising things we need to do on Infinity War, if that's where we are, or we're looking ahead and trying to shine up Endgame.
The footage was going directly to Jeff Ford, the editor, who is assembling the movie as it is shot and really clarifying what we've got, what we don't have, because the set is still there. If we can get these actors back in the room and have them say, we have to go there, you know, sometimes a much better line than that, this will all tie together in a much more organic way.
And if you don't mind my asking, where the hell have you been all this time?
Well, she was always going to be in it, but we didn't have much to go on. They had cast her, and that was it. It is a tough balance to strike when you have a character that powerful, who you're going to bring in, and you don't want it to seem like, well, we just brought in this person who can clean the house that we couldn't clean in the previous movie. So we had to decide on a balance between not making it feel like a cameo, but not having her around so much that she solved all the problems for everybody.
It also wasn't the point of the movie. The point of the second movie was saying goodbye to the original 6 Avengers. So their stories were going to be way up here. We had the same issue a little bit with Black Panther in Infinity War, because people go, oh, Black Panther, he's coming back 2 months from now. All right, I'm gonna get a lot of Black Panther. And he got some, and we went to Wakanda, but he wasn't the lead character. It was not fair to the other 6 Avengers to have Captain Marvel come in and solve all their problems. It didn't seem like good storytelling. We probably wrote the last thing for Endgame January or February of 2019. We knew we'd have about a month of reshoots, particularly final battle stuff. It was just so ambitious.
It is more correctly entitled additional photography. It wasn't stuff we got wrong, it was stuff that we didn't know we needed or we knew we needed but could never get. Yeah, we did a few tweaks early this year.
The end of the movie was always on the board from, say, October of 2015.
It was a big responsibility. I mean, you don't want to arbitrarily kill him.
Nor would we be able to.
But it has to be the right end to that arc. And God knows how many movies now as Tony Stark. To get him to that point where that was the only thing left for him to do was sacrifice himself. Boy, it made me happy when people responded in the movie theater and got what that meant.
It's straight out of a splash panel. Whenever a hero dies in the comics, you get these sort of big 2-page spreads where everybody's there and they're sad and they're in various versions of their costume. We called it the wedding for production so that if something was lying around, it didn't say Tony's funeral.
And it was a bit of a tour through the MCU, through what has happened before, saying goodbye to the person who started this cinematic sequence.
It's not when people die that is sad for the audience. It's when the people left behind have to react to it. I get choked up when we move through all those people at the end of Endgame. I get choked up at the end of Infinity War
when people like Okoye are so devastated because T'Challa has just disappeared in front of her. I'm not devastated because T'Challa disappeared. I'm watching her reaction. I'm watching Rocket's reaction to seeing Groot disappear.
And it's almost something Tony would have been uncomfortable with in life. He would have made a joke about it. He would have brought AC/DC out to play.
Which would have been.
Well, it would have been cool, but they're busy, and he is very much not there.
But that's why we set up his giving of his own eulogy in the very beginning of the movie with this device where he could record into his own helmet, because we knew we wanted him to comment on his own demise at the end. We always thought it was incredibly apropos that Tony Stark give his own eulogy. Usually, your good guys lose, and they lose for 5 minutes, and now, they find a new way to get around it, and the movie ends. What happens when they lose at the end of the movie? And then you gotta wait a year, and then we wrap it in saran wrap because we cut the bad guy's head off and we take the stones away.
And that really is how you keep this unprecedented thing like the MCU alive. Most of these movies have ended with a win. We wanted to see what happens to their personalities when they don't, when they, very, very definitively lose.
These are confusing times.
When we tested this with various secret audiences, they always said, first part's the slowest. And we went, well, We know that, but I'll guarantee you if we cut it in half, even if we could, when Cap picks up the hammer, when he says on your left, it wouldn't resonate as much because you hadn't gone so dark before.
We really want to make them feel that we value these characters as much as they do.
The watchword was stick the landing, right? And that's why the code name for these was Mary Lou, just because it was named for Mary Lou Retton.